I'm Isabella, a 35-year-old office worker. I'm married to Lucas, who's 5 years younger than me, and we live in a small apartment. Lucas has a sister, Abigail, who's 4 years younger than him. She's already married and has moved out of her in-laws' home. We don't see her, or my mother-in-law often, just during summer vacations and Christmas. It's an hour's drive to my in-laws' place, but my father-in-law seems lonely, so he's been visiting us quite frequently lately.
Isabella, what on earth are you doing? Open the door within 10 seconds when I ring the doorbell. You're so inconsiderate.
My mother-in-law complains if I don't open the door immediately after she rings the doorbell. I'm sorry, mother-in-law. I was in the bathroom and couldn't come right away.
I don't need excuses. What are you standing there for? Let's make coffee. Honestly, what kind of upbringing did you have?
She visits unannounced and expects to be treated like royalty when she's here. To be honest, I find it hard to deal with my mother-in-law. I initially thought I should be polite because she's the woman who gave birth to my husband, but I never expected her to be so rude and self-centered. I head to the kitchen, letting out a small sigh so mother-in-law can't hear. Meanwhile, she's lounging on the sofa, watching TV.
What is this? You knew I was coming, and you didn't get any fancy snacks? Bring out some delicious pastries.
I didn't know what to serve since she came unexpectedly, so I offered her a $3 donut from the shelf. But she wanted something more expensive and told me to go buy it right away. Next time, if you could let me know in advance, I'll prepare some pastries for you. Actually, I've been feeling unwell since this morning and was lying on the sofa. I've always been prone to catching colds during seasonal changes. Today is a weekday, but I took the day off for some errands. I never expected mother-in-law to show up today. When I asked why she came today, she said she saw my car and decided to visit.
I told her I'd appreciate a heads up, but she said, why should I tell you my plans? This is my son's home, so I can come anytime I want. No need to inform you.
But if you don't let me know, I can't prepare your favorite snacks. Plus, I've plans this afternoon and will be stepping out, so I can only accommodate you until then. I looked at Mile with a troubled expression, and she clearly looked displeased.
What? You want me to leave even though I came all the way here? You have no sense of hospitality, do you?
No, that's not it. But I took the day off for a reason and have plans. I can only accommodate you until noon today. Please come again when Lucas is around. While snacking, Mill kept talking about how a daughter-in-law should behave. She probably thinks she's doing this for my benefit, but all I wanted was for her to leave the room as soon as possible. Eventually, as I started getting ready to go out.
Next time, make sure you have at least 3 of my favorite snacks ready, she grumbled as she left.
I forgot to remind her to check with me before coming over, so I sent her a WhatsApp message. She never read it. When I told my husband about all this, he said, "That sounds tough. But maybe my mom is just lonely. Could you keep her company when you have time?" I thought if that's the case, she could at least consider my schedule. Dealing with Mile, who always acts on her own terms, is becoming increasingly exhausting. We're both busy with work. If you're so concerned, why don't you spend time with your own mother? I told him. He replied, "Isn't that something you should handle? Isabella, us women get along better, and it would make my mom happy. Please do it," and quickly headed for the bath. Clearly, my husband finds it bothersome to deal with Miliel. He'd rather pass that responsibility on to me. I get it, no one wants to be bossed around by Mil after a long day. But I feel the same way, and it's even more stressful because she's not my biological parent. I wish my husband would help out, but that seems unlikely given his current attitude. A few days later, I got home early from work and was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Mil.
What's this? The place is a mess. But you're in charge of the house, so keep it tidy.
Mayo, didn't we just talk about this? Please check with me before coming over. It's really inconvenient when you show up unannounced. I used to be gentle about it, but that only encouraged her to take advantage. So I've started to be more direct about things I don't like.
By the way, did you prepare the snacks I asked for, right? I specifically told you last time. Hurry up and bring him out. I came today looking forward to it.
She sat on the sofa expecting me to bring the snacks, but of course, I didn't have time to prepare anything. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were coming, so I didn't prepare any snacks. When I told her I didn't have the snacks, she was visibly annoyed.
What do you mean you didn't prepare them? I told you last time. You're such a failure as a wife. I can't believe Lucas fell for someone like you. I would never let someone like you marry into the family. You're so inconsiderate.
Ignoring meal, I continued preparing dinner.
What's with the way you're cutting these vegetables? Why can't you cut them nicely? Now she was criticizing the way I was cooking.
This is the correct way to cut them. Weren't you aware?
There's no need to cut them like that. What are you planning to make for dinner? Don't feed my son anything weird.
As I was cutting the ingredients, Mill was scrutinizing my every move. It was incredibly uncomfortable, and her constant complaints made everything take longer and made me more frustrated. I was hoping she wasn't planning to stay, but it turned out she was.
Oh, it's fine. This is my son's house, isn't it? So it's practically my house too. I can come whenever I want. Besides, I'm curious about what you usually cook, so I'll taste it before I go.
She plans to eat the food I've prepared, even though I didn't invite her. Actually, you don't have to do that. Today, I'm making fried chicken, which my husband loves. It might be a bit heavy for you. I remember her saying she avoids fried foods because of her age. Upon hearing fried chicken, she frowned for a moment. I thought she might leave, but she said,
I can't leave without tasting your cooking. Prepare something light to cleanse the palate.
she's determined to eat my cooking, whether it's convenient for me or not. So reluctantly, I prepared dinner for her as well. Just as the fried chicken was ready, my husband came home.
Oh, what are you doing here? I didn't know you were coming.
Clearly, he was surprised to find her at home.
It's fine. I was curious about how you're living. I'll have dinner here too.
If Isabella is okay with it, then I guess that it's fine. Has it been coming out? He come out the last time? Did you call ahead today? I surely have to call. This is your house, so it's practically my house too. Baby, show spectacle, Polly. I don't need a call. Pie?
She won't even listen to her own son. I sighed where they couldn't hear me.
Donald, that's not how it works-y. Just because it's my house doesn't mean, and she can't show up unannounced. Short tradition. I'll call Isabella first to check if it's okay. Maria's.
My husband took my side, but that seemed to upset her. They argued the whole time I was preparing dinner. She even accused me of turning her son against her. Finally, dinner was ready, and we all sat down to eat. My husband was delighted with the fried chicken, but Mile was not.
What is this? The fried chicken is too big and greasy. I can't eat this. She shouldn't be feeding my son such unhealthy food. I regret letting him marry you.
She complained about every dish I had prepared.
What are you talking about? Isabella worked hard to make this. You're the one who insisted on joining us for dinner. If you're not happy, you can leave.
My husband stood up for me. And suddenly,
How can he speak to me like that? He used to be so kind. It must be Isabella's fault. She's changed you.
she blamed me for her son not taking her side and stormed out, leaving her dinner unfinished. I'm sorry. Isabella, I never thought my mom could be so selfish. My husband apologized on behalf of his mother, clearly not expecting her to act the way she did. After that incident, mother-in-law stopped contacting us and making surprise visits. We thought she was too embarrassed to show up after being scolded by her son. I might have been a bit harsh, but honestly, her unannounced visits were inconvenient. I've been particularly busy with work recently, as it's the busy season. Even though I come home exhausted, it's mentally tough to have mother-in-law attack me in this state and throw me around selfishly. When mother-in-law stopped coming, life got easier. I was more productive at work and at home. I hoped things would stay peaceful, but little did I know mother-in-law was plotting something terrible. It all started with a phone call. Not long after my husband got home, mother-in-law called. She invited us to a barbecue at her house during the upcoming holiday weekend. We were surprised that mother-in-law, who had been so inconsiderate before, was now asking about our availability. My husband and I exchanged glances. Sure, we're free that day. Thanks for calling to invite us. My husband ended the call, and we both thought that maybe his stern words had finally gotten through to her. After all, I thought that instead of storing up my dissatisfaction, I should tell the person I don't like it. A few days later, we went to mother-in-law's for the first time in a while. When we arrived, my sister-in-law and her husband were already there, setting up for the barbecue. Thus we get along well, so I was happy to see her. She's pregnant, so I helped her with her preparations. Mother-in-law was completely different from before. She didn't give me a hard time at all. In fact, she even apologized for her previous behavior. I'm sorry for being so inconsiderate before. Next time, let's plan ahead. When I said that, my mother-in-law looked very happy. Fish the barbecue was fun, and we all enjoyed some light conversation. Since we were staying overnight, I even had a few drinks. But this was just the calm before the storm. The real nightmare began later, around 2 a.m. I woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for some water. Timmy, I found mother-in-law rummaging around.
This will be the end of that daughter-in-law, Leo.
I couldn't hear her clearly, but she left the kitchen soon after, so I thought she was just thirsty like me. However, I would find out the next day that this was not the case. The next day, mother-in-law started cooking something in the kitchen. What is you making?
It's my special shrimp po' boy. I prepared it secretly last night.
My husband said her shrimp po' boy was delicious, so I was excited to try it. I remembered what happened the night before and was glad I hadn't interrupted her. Mother-in-law asked me to make clam chowder, so I started cooking. If he had kept it a secret, she shouldn't have called out at that time. My mother-in-law asked me to make clam chowder instead, since she fried food, so I decided to make clam chowder. When my husband and others smelled the food, they came into the kitchen. Mom shrimp po' boy? It's been a while.
As I was about to serve the food, mother-in-law said, I'll take care of that. You go sit down.
I noticed something black on my shrimp po' boy. Just as I was about to eat it, my phone rang. It was a call from a junior colleague at work.
Eat your food. Isabella. It won't taste good if it gets cold.
But father-in-law isn't here yet.
He'll be here soon.
Something might have happened, so I excused myself to take the call. I heard mother-in-law make a TS key sound as I left. My father-in-law took my seat as he returned from the bathroom. It looks delicious. Father-in-law sat down in the empty seat and reached for my shrimp po' boy.
That's Isabella's.
Mother-in-law tried to stop him, but no one else intervened because I hadn't touched it yet. It's fine. She hasn't touched it yet. My husband encouraged father-in-law to go ahead and eat. Bon appetite?
Don't eat it.
It was too late. Father-in-law had already taken a big bite. What is this?
What is this?
Father-in-law suddenly started making a fuss after eating the shrimp po' boy. Everyone stopped eating and looked at him. I returned from my phone call to find father-in-law covered in red hives, struggling to breathe.
I told you not to eat it. That was Isabella's shrimp po' boy.
Confused, we called an ambulance and rushed father-in-law to the hospital. It turned out he had an allergic reaction, but timely treatment saved his life. According to my husband, father-in-law had no food allergies, only to cats and dogs. I'm also allergic to cats. Even a slight touch can give me hives. But there were no cats at mother-in-law's house. The doctor asked us what could have caused the allergic reaction. I noticed mother-in-law looking awkward and uneasy. What's wrong, Mom? You look pale. Do you know something about Dad's condition?
Well,
Mother-in-law had been acting strange.
then I remembered her saying that was Isabella's shrimp po' boy.
What do you mean by that? You know something, don't you?
Well, she admitted to mixing cat hair into my shrimp po' boy.
I remember seeing something black in it, but thought it was shrimp whiskers. If I had eaten it, I might have ended up like father-in-law. The thought sent shivers down my spine. However, what mother-in-law did is completely unforgivable. If you make a wrong move, what were you thinking? My husband confronted mother-in-law.
She never respects me. She only serves cheap snacks and doesn't listen to me.
I was dumbfounded. The reason I couldn't prepare better snacks was that mother-in-law always showed up unannounced. If you had told us you were coming, I would have prepared your favorite snacks and listened to you. I said, mother-in-law's selfishness had put father-in-law in the hospital and I felt helpless. It's not Isabella's fault. It's yours, Mom. Mother-in-law lost her temper.
I'm the mother-in-law. She should be prepared for my visits. She never treats me well, so I thought I'd teach her a lesson by putting cat hair in her food.
Meal showed no signs of remorse.
That's it. That's it. I can't forgive you for trying to harm someone I care about. We're cutting ties with you.com.
And me too. I mean, what? I can't deal with you anymore, especially with a baby on the way.
How does it feel to be disowned by your own children? If it were me, I don't think I can ever recover. Bill, who is always high on pride, insisted she did nothing wrong, even when criticized by her husband and sister-in-law. So we got permission from the doctor and went to visit father-in-law in his hospital room. When father-in-law heard what had happened, he apologized to me on mother-in-law's behalf. Right after he was discharged, he served mother-in-law with divorce papers.
Why should I get divorced? All I did was play a little prank on my daughter-in-law. I absolutely won't agree to a divorce.
Mother-in-law, who never thought she'd be divorced, was outraged. In the end, the situation escalated to involve other family members. Mother-in-law was humiliated and forced to sign the divorce papers in front of everyone. We moved to a secure apartment, far from our parents' home, to ensure mother-in-law couldn't visit. The moving costs were a burden, but it was worth it to be free from the stress of mother-in-law's visits. Thanks to that, I became pregnant and safely entered the stable period. We found out we were having a boy and spent happy times picking out baby items and thinking of names. That's when it happened. My in-law, somehow finding out about my pregnancy, suddenly showed up in front of my workplace. I was shocked to see her as I was leaving work.
I finally found you.
She closed the distance between us with incredible speed.
It's all your fault. If you hadn't left your seat that day, I wouldn't be divorced now. Take care of me.
She appeared out of nowhere, demanding I take care of her. Apparently, mother-in-law was not only shunned by father-in-law's relatives, but also her own, and she was struggling financially. I've nothing to do with your problems. Well, should I take care of you? I spoke my mind, as she is now a stranger to me. But mother-in-law grabbed me and started yelling right in front of my workplace.
Stop this! What's me? I'm Chance. I'm somebody with a pride.
I don't care. I'm struggling here.
Security and colleagues tried to restrain her, but she was uncontrollable. I was worried about my unborn child. When I heard sirens in the distance, someone had called the police for me. In fact, the person who made the report also thought I was being attacked by a suspicious person and called the police. Mother-in-law was taken away by arriving officers. I told my husband about the incident when I got home.
I can't believe she'd do something like that. I'm just glad you're okay. Isabella.
I felt a bit sorry for mother-in-law, being referred to as that person by her own son. It's true that the mother-in-law is at fault, but as a mother myself, I feel a little sorry for her child who calls her that person instead of calling her mom. Mother-in-law ended up spending a few days in jail to reflect on her actions. But even after her release, she was still struggling financially. She called all her relatives for financial help, but no one was willing. We also received a call, but there was no way we'd help her after what she'd done. But mother-in-law didn't give up.
She kept asking, when will they come to get me?
But her children never came. Mother-in-law finally realized she was abandoned and spent her days crying in regret. But on the other hand, I safely gave birth to a baby boy. Giving birth for the first time was difficult, but I was really happy that the baby was born healthy. A month after my discharge, my sister-in-law and father-in-law visited us with gifts. My father-in-law and I have a lot of issues with my mother-in-law, but we still have an agreement to meet regularly. Father-in-law is now living in a small apartment near us and works as a tennis coach. He was actually a strong tennis player in high school. I've always been an active person, and I often spend my days off doing physical activities such as running and swimming, and enjoys buying toys and clothes for his grandson. Despite all the drama with mother-in-law, we're happy now. Our son is growing well, and we're looking forward to raising him together.